Hello, everybody. This is Jess from 3D Learning Experts, and you're listening to the LD Experts Podcast, the show for busy parents who want to help their kids with learning disabilities, or as I like to say, learning differences, go from surviving to thriving. Today, we're talking about attention and focus with Brent Moore, who is an expert in clinical mental health counseling with a background in psychology and attention issues. And he offers dyslexia assessments in Missouri. And I'm trying to convince him to start offering them online so that everyone can get his help.
That's right.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for being here today, Brent.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much.
Yeah. So, um, I'd love for our audience to hear how you got started helping people with dyslexia and with ADHD and ADD, because about 75% of people with dyslexia have ADD or ADHD. So it's definitely a huge part of our lives. I didn't realize how much it affected my life until I was in my dyslexia training, and that's when I learned that my ADHD really runs me.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So, as it is for many people, it seems like our lives are affected personally by certain issues that end up becoming these touch points that become very important to us. And so, as you said, my background is in clinical mental health counseling and psychology, and so it is something that is connected, dyslexia and obviously ADHD and specific learning disorders are connected with psychology. But it wasn't until our son was diagnosed with dyslexia that I really started to um, spark a passion within me to understand more about dyslexia. And the more I understood about dyslexia, the more I wanted to work with that particular group of people because I just think it's so important that they get the shot that they deserve and need in the school systems because oftentimes individuals with dyslexia are overlooked. And so our son was diagnosed with dyslexia when he was in kindergarten. We started him a little bit late to kindergarten because he was on the verge of going early, or we could send him a little bit late. And so we decided to hold on and let him mature a little bit more and then go into kindergarten. And that's where they discovered the dyslexia. He was then diagnosed with ADHD around second grade. And so that combination that you're talking about of dyslexia and ADHD, he has that. So it really moved me to open a clinic while I'm doing full-time teaching. I teach graduate counseling at Indiana Wesleyan University, and that job it takes up most of my time. But I do have a clinic that I opened to dedicating to help students with their attention and focus issues, and on a part-time basis.
And you said that you are training people to do that as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, so as far as the dyslexia assessments are concerned, I like I said, I have a background in psychology, and my PhD is in psychology, and I feel comfortable doing assessments. I've been teaching graduate level assessments for over a decade now, and so the assessment piece, I do that on my own, and I am in the process of bringing other people into the business so that it's not just me doing the assessments because I only have so much time in the day. But I figure if I can train up some other people, we'd be able to affect the people in our area and our community who need the assessments a lot more effectively. To meet that need. So I do the assessment, I'll write the report, I'll send it to another psychologist who will look it over and sign off on it too. So I've got two sets of eyes actually on the dyslexia assessment itself, and then I'll meet with the parents to go over the results and come up with a plan for how to move forward.
And how receptive do you find the schools are with the assessment and the plans that you create?
Ooh, that's a good question. It all depends on the school and the school district. And I've found that it's really spotty, and there's never really continuity, it seems like, between different school districts about how they're going to accept a plan. And that's another part of what I do. I would like to be able to set up a system to advocate for those families that need help walking through the process. I don't think that, I think it's a wonderful niche for people who are willing to do that, even in a service model, a business service model, to help parents walk through that process of how to help families who need plans for their children in the school setting. So I'll do everything I can to spell that out and lay it out for the school district and the school about what the student needs. Whether or not the school's willing to accommodate is a whole different conversation. And I think that um, if the service provider who offers the test is willing to be a part of that conversation, it's just that much more effective. So I do encourage parents to reach out to me if they need help along the way of navigating the system.
And do you find, you said that it depends on the school how willing they are to do accommodations.
Mhm.
I was thinking just providing services, but you find a
Mhm.
lot of schools aren't even willing to do accommodations for the students.
Some aren't, and
Wow.
I'm thinking of the school system that our own child is in. We've had to uh, sort of navigate the waters of accommodations and what that looks like specifically for the school. And the school wanted us to be able to sign off on it of how we accommodate for him at home because he goes to a school that's a hybrid model. It's also called a university model in some settings
Hmm.
where he goes Monday, Wednesday, Friday to school, and then we homeschool on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And when I say we, that's like saying my wife and I are pregnant. No, she's pregnant. I'm not pregnant. She does the homeschool. I do very little with that. She's was a first grade school teacher for about 10 years, and she does a wonderful job with it. So, yes, even with the accommodations, sometimes there can be a little bit of a fight with what needs to take place.
That's that's so sad. I mean, because accommodations really shouldn't be that much of a burden on the school or the teacher, and
Mm.
it makes life so much better for the individual.
Mhm. And I'm
But
used to giving accommodations even as a graduate professor
mm,
and working with adults who are going through their master's programs. Accommodations are still things that I receive on a regular basis. At the beginning of the semester, the student gives me a letter that they get from the university that's providing accommodations and what those accommodations are. And then I need to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do in order to make sure that gets fulfilled. So, I'm also a recipient of accommodations and understand what that's like to give accommodations. So it just makes it that much more frustrating as a parent of a kiddo who needs accommodations, who you need to fight with the school in order to get those accommodations.
and do you have any recommendations of how to help the school understand that their child needs the accommodations?
Yeah, I think there's probably greater awareness of that, I would assume, coming from the places where teachers are receiving their educations, from the origin of, like where the root of the problem exists, probably is in, where administrators and teachers are getting their information about what students need in order to be successful. And I think schools are doing that now, right? I mean, I think people are on the same page about where they need to be with kids having the tools they need to succeed. So, I mean, I would say going to the grassroots of the issue of probably where people get their education from.
Well, you can't really confront a teacher about how are you educated?
Yeah, yeah,
Why don't you?
it's a systems issue. So, like, one of the things that I've become involved with is the Kansas and Missouri. We have a dual state setup with the International Dyslexia Association. I've become a board member on there, the International Dyslexia Association for Kansas and Missouri. And sitting on that, my eyes are open wider even to um, some of the ways that we can impact the system through education and being present, maybe in conferences where teachers are present, and just being more aware of, the issues that are present with the students in their classrooms.
Well, that is a great issue I've found having raised my kids in three different states. In Texas, the teachers understood dyslexia very, very well because they were educated by the dyslexia teacher who every school in our district had a teacher at least half of the day. Sometimes,
Mhm.
they travel from one or another school. But in Nevada and California, they had no understanding of what dyslexia was at all. So,
Mhm.
like you said, education, even within the school district, is very important.
Mhm.
That's one of the things actually that's on my goal list is to help provide training to the teachers for their CE credits,
Mhm.
and hopefully they
Mhm.
can learn more about dyslexia and be more understanding and more patient with their
Mhm.
students because that makes a difference.
Right. And I think, also I have a lot of humility about this subject too. There's so much more that I can learn and be active in learning more about. And so I don't want to make it sound like it's somebody else's problem or it's because of this or that system that things are performing poorly. I'm going through a certificate program through Missouri State University right now in dyslexia. And so I think that there are always ways that we can be growing and furthering our understanding of dyslexia and how to meet people where they're at when they are confronted with issues surrounding dyslexia.
Well, I'm so grateful for you and your dedication to this cause because without people like you, we wouldn't be making the progress that we are. So thank you so much
Sure.
for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is your mission? What do you hope to achieve?
Yeah,
I
one of my missions, I can say this with great assuredness that like one of my missions is to offer services to families at an affordable rate so that they can get their children assessed for dyslexia. I don't know what people are charging at different places across the United States, but when we got our son tested, it was $1,800, and that was a lot of money for us to pay out to get tested. Again, I don't know what the mean is across the
well,
country.
I can tell you California, the average is 25 to $3,500
Mhm.
for the test.
Right. And so I have opened this clinic, and again, it's not my full-time job, so it's not my money maker. It's my passion project to help kids who are in this situation of getting the proper diagnosis that they need, that I only charge a fraction of that amount. And when I say fraction, I mean a lot less. And so I really do think that that's important to give people access to the resources that they need. The schools will test, but sometimes the schools want more information even beyond the testing that they come up with. So this is what we found, but maybe it's inconclusive, and we need more information or data or um, more diagnostics done from a different outside resource. And sometimes the schools are very overwhelmed, and it takes a very long time for students to be seen for testing as well.
Well, and my understanding is some states still don't do specific testing for dyslexia, and they definitely don't do it for dysgraphia or dyscalculia.
Mhm.
So, hopefully, you'll learn how to do testing
Yeah.
for those in the future
Right,
too.
right. Yeah. That's just something to add on to the plate for in the future. But so, because I can't be everywhere at once, I am bringing people in, like I said
That's
earlier, into
amazing.
into the place where I have rented out the space, and we're going to try to utilize that and utilize the time well, and in order to meet as many kids' needs as we can, moving into the future.
I love that. So
So,
wonderful.
yeah. Yes. So I'm not selling or promoting anything of my own services, for that. I just have a strong passion for dyslexia. So I appreciate you having me on just to talk about some of the things that are out there and some of the things that I notice even from a geographical standpoint. What's happening in Missouri and what's happening in Kansas and the area location that I'm at.
So, do they provide any dyslexia services in the schools in Missouri or Kansas, or does everyone have to find outside help like our tutoring program?
So, like your tutoring program, most of the kids that I see will end up needing to see an Orton Gillingham certified instructor or someone who's certified in an empirically validated way to help kids with dyslexia. And a lot of that's not offered in the school. Some of the school districts are training their teachers with the OG methodology. And so I think that that's very effective for instruction, especially in those earlier ages, to be able to get the fundamentals. But I found that our son, and from an anecdotal standpoint, our son really thrived in that one-on-one environment when we had a
Hmm.
tutor for him, and he just took off with the proper instruction, which we were fortunate enough to have.
Yes. And that is, I mean, it's amazing how getting the correct instruction will change their life from night to day.
Yeah, absolutely. He started off very, very poorly in kindergarten, and now he's in fourth grade, reading in a fifth grade level. So
Awesome. That
yeah,
is amazing.
yeah.
Yes. That's
So
wonderful to hear.
yeah,
Yes. So, is there anything we haven't talked about ADHD? Do you want to
hmm
go into that a little bit more? Like how
sure.
maybe people can work with their ADHD to not be such a distraction in their learning environment?
hmm Yeah, so I think a lot of the research points to cognitive behavioral therapy as being an effective means for uh, addressing ADHD. And I think that so much more than just the behavioral and cognitive components, there's physiological components to ADHD that aren't being addressed in traditional therapy settings. So what I've done is integrated biofeedback, which is really helpful for understanding what's going on inside of our bodies. So I will hook children up, so to speak, to my computer, and they will be able to get an accurate reading of what their temperature is, what their heart rate is, what their breathing is, what their galvanic skin response, their skin conductance is, and be able to have these accurate measures of how the sympathetic nervous system may be, going off, and a kid is in a wild state, and I'll be able to see that on in biofeedback. If they're not, that could be possible too. I'll try to take wherever the student is at and move them into a place of calm. And I think in that calm place, students will learn, or the people that I work with will learn over time how to regulate themselves by understanding using biomarkers where their body's doing internally. And the person that mentored me in biofeedback was a nurse at Children's Mercy Hospital here in Kansas City, and she worked in the gut clinic, the GI clinic with kids who had gastrointestinal issues, doing biofeedback because there's a lot that goes on between the brain and gut connection. And so I learned from her, and I've used it with helping as one component of helping people with ADHD and who struggle with ADHD. So what I'll do is once they do get calm, when I'm working with them to calm their nervous system, is I will put them on a balance board to get their sympathetic nervous system back active again, and then sit them back down, and we'll work on practice on getting them calmed down again. And so I think the practice of that's very helpful. More of a another physiological thing that I do, which I would consider it a physiological intervention, is use. It's called interactive metronome. And it's a program where, again, that goes through the computer. The student holds a sensor in their palm of their hand, and they'll clap along with a metronome beat that occurs through the computer. And then the software will track within a millionth of a second um, if the student is before or after the beat, and they can auto correct their clapping according to what visual stimuli they see on the screen, and they can
Wow.
adjust. And so that helps with neural timing. So I'll find that kids with ADHD often are clapping too fast, or they're clapping before the beat, and get them to slow down and pay attention, and they can actually end up um, attending to the cues that they get about where they are in relationship to the metronome beat and adjust. And so that neural timing becomes really important. And so I'm doing other things outside of the cognitive behavioral realm that address and their tools to add to a child's tool belt, which I think even if a child doesn't have ADHD or diagnosed with ADHD rather, that they would benefit from understanding biofeedback and what their body is doing internally when they're just resting, sitting on a sofa or a chair.
That is incredible. My family used biofeedback to find out what our allergies are, but I did not know that you could use biofeedback for so many other things.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, absolutely.
that's incredible. Wow.
And so you can walk a child through visualizations, or you could do guided imagery, or just any kind of relaxation techniques to help them move into a space of calm. I met with someone just last week where I was done with the session, and the mom came in, and her son was just sitting on the recliner where I do the biofeedback, and he was calm, cool, and collected. She's like, "What did you do? Like he's never, like this, he's never this calm." And it's because moving into a relaxed state, he became more regulated. And I think the more that kids can practice that,
Mm.
the more that they can feel a sense of efficacy, or they can do it on their own. It's very empowering, I think, for children.
That's wonderful because meditation is something that can be done at home. They don't have to come to your office to
Hmm.
learn that. And
Hmm.
I started meditating about 4 or 5 years ago, and I have definitely found it to be beneficial. I mean, at first, I could barely do 3 minutes of it, and now
Hmm.
I can sit and meditate for maybe 20 minutes. So,
Nice. Yeah,
yeah, that is
that's great.
wonderful
Yeah.
information. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a little bit different, but I think that sometimes different things can be really helpful in the therapeutic room. We're talking about different types of therapies to work with attention and focus issues. And these I've found have been very effective in my own practice. So
Yeah,
those
I
are just a
love it.
couple of examples.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. I'm ready to take a trip out to Missouri.
But that's funny.
So, how often do you need to work with the individual? Is it a one-time thing and then you give them homework to do, or do they come to your office repeatedly?
Yeah, they usually come repeatedly if it's for an intervention for ADHD. And usually I'll see them for about 10 sessions or so to do these different techniques with them. Depending on the severity of the case, it can always change, but we can adjust the treatment plan based on the needs of the client. And then when people come in for the diagnostic testing for dyslexia, that's usually 3 visits, to do the testing, because I try to avoid the testing fatigue that comes along with doing the test. So I usually will work for kids for about an hour and a half or so for 3 sessions to do the testing, and then write the report and meet with the parents for about an hour.
That's so great, and definitely. I mean, I used to do testing, and it I would do it in 1 or 2 sessions. So three sounds much more comfortable for an individual to be able to sit through that.
Yeah, yeah. I usually have them for about 5 to 6 hours. So when I'm doing the workup, so it's usually a pretty exhausting process for everybody, right?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I stepped away from it. It was not something my ADHD personality could handle.
Uh-huh. Right. Yeah. Oh, well,
That
that's good.
is that is so amazing. I so appreciate you coming on and sharing all this information with my audience. And um, I really hope that you can get the virtual testing going so that we can more people can get affordable or assessments done,
Sure.
because it's a shame when someone has to spend thousands of dollars just to get a piece of paper that the schools may not even accept,
Right.
um, just to have an official diagnosis.
Right. Right.
So,
And I think the assessment piece is so crucial in guiding people like yourself, even who do the interventions for kids with dyslexia, because you know exactly where the child is in specific subtests and specific domains where their strengths are, as well as the areas that they need to grow in. So
yes,
that's also really helpful for the people who are tutoring the child or working with the child or
yes,
adolescent.
we actually do a onboarding placement, so that it's definitely not as intense as the assessment, but it gives us a good point of not of reference of where their strengths are and where their deficits currently are as well. So you
Sure,
are
sure.
it is, I feel like it's absolutely necessary to have a starting point so you can see where you came from and where you got to.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's
Yeah. Is
good.
there anything else you would like to share before we finish up?
Well, you and I met through LinkedIn, and I think that's a wonderful place to meet people and share ideas and even some of the techniques that we're talking about today. So, if anybody wants to connect on LinkedIn, I'm more than happy to engage people on that platform. I'm not really on a social media person, but I do get on there from time to time, especially over the summer when I have a little bit more time.
Yes, you are a busy
Yeah,
person,
yeah,
so I can't
yeah,
imagine that you have a lot of time to spend on social media.
yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. So they just look for Brent Moore on
Yeah,
LinkedIn
yeah,
and connect with you there.
yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for
Yeah,
your time, Brent. I really appreciate you taking time to meet with me and share all this great information.
absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.